Do you know the best opening strategy for the Barbarians in the board game Rome Total War? If you don't, then stay tuned and find out for more. My fellow barbarians, thank you for coming and joining us today. Are you bored through? We're bored through, and here at Bored Through, we're all about the gameplay. And today we're going to continue with our strategy guide for Rome Total War, the board game. And in particular, what we're going to do is we're going to bring together all the strategies that I have been telling you about so far to show you what a really good opening for the barbarians could look like. So in particular, what we're going to do here is we're going to make the assumption that we are going in the first turn. So that's why there is nothing else set out on the board at the moment, because the barbarians are going to go first. With this in mind, in particular when you have the starting coins, you start with 2 coins, so we're going to assume that we have spent 1 coin in order to secure this position, so we're going to have 1 coin left after that. And then we're also going to make the assumption that we are playing with 4 players, so Carthage, Rome and Greece are present on this map. And the great thing about thinking about having all 4 factions out there is it offers us some constraints in terms of our strategy, which means that anything that I'm teaching you here, if there is one faction that is missing, essentially the way to see that is there's one portion of the board which is just an absolute move out there and grab it. So in particular, if we're playing the barbarians and Carthage is missing, go for the Iberian Peninsula. If Rome is missing, go for the Italian peninsula. If Greece is missing, then go for Greece and the eastern side of the map. So much of the map sits on actually east of Athens. So absolutely work your way around there and head your way down the coast. There's absolutely no need to get into any confrontations. But we're going to assume that all of them are in play, because how that constrains our strategy is what opens up the creativity of this. So as we enter the game, in the initiative phase, we've won the initiative, spent 1 of our coin in order to claim that. Now we're going to move on to the agent phase. In the agent phase, the cards that you get to begin with are going to massively determine the possibilities that are open for you. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by assuming that we didn't get any cards that are particularly useful to us. But some of the cards that we could think about as being really, really useful in opening up our strategy, in particular, is the prepared battlefield is a great one. That's going to be really useful when we're thinking about army number 4 and how that can fight within the terrain. Another one that's going to be useful is also, as I'm just looking for the cards myself here, another one that's going to be useful is forced march. So being able to move your armies by an extra one movement unit is really, really beneficial, kind of going forwards. And in particular, inspired agents is going to be really, really useful as well, just because having the ability to do 2 actions can help us. Although in the first turn, maybe not completely is the best thing, because we don't have any of the other agents on the board, so it means that we're going to have to move our agent into the capital of the other factions if we want to try and do something. So in particular, if you've got an idea of who you might want to be forming an alliance with, then this is the time to think about that. The other thing that we want to think about is the card that allows us to be able to purchase to purchase mercenaries, and that's not any of the text on the cards, but actually that's the card that looks like the Greek helm with the bag of gold next to it. That's the one that's going to allow you to recruit mercenaries. As long as you've got an agent in the mercenaries region, you can recruit mercenaries into an army up to 4 spaces away, and we're going to take a look at how you can use that here. So what that means then is that as we move into the taxation phase, then so we're going to make the assumption once again that we don't have any cards and nothing has happened that has taken money away from us. We haven't made a treasury theft or anything like that. So starting with the 1 gold that we already had, what that means is we also have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 gold, because we have 11 regions, and one of the regions, our capital, gives us 2 gold. So we've got 12 plus our 1 is 13. So we're starting off with 13. That's going to be relevant when we come back to the spending phase at the end of our first turn. But for now, we've got 13 gold sitting in our bank. So in particular, what we want to think about is getting some of these armies out onto the board. And what we want to do in the first instance is to think about who do we want to be aggressive towards, who do we potentially want to be neutral towards, and who might we want to be friendly with. And the really easy one to be friendly with is the Greeks, because they're far away, there's a lot less competition with them. We've got the Romans, who are going to be natural enemies here because they're going to want to expand towards the north. And in the Barbarians have the best advantage against the Romans in the early game, which means that if we have any intention of battling with the Romans, we should do it early. When it comes to the Carthaginians, they're one that we might want to have a neutral stance towards. But I'm going to show you a really great combination of strategies which shows you why you might not needs to necessarily do that. We also want to take a note as well that the Barbarians in the very first turn do not have access to their fleets, which means that we can't take advantage, say, of coming down here and going out into the Mediterranean in the first turn. We can't take advantage of loading up armies onto boats and coming down into the Iberian Peninsula, not from the first turn. But I'm going to show you why you might want to consider investing that at the end of your first turn. So in particular then, what we want to think about, what I think is really vitally important is being able to get an army out and moving over here to these regions over here that I refer to as the sun. And what is in the sun here, the reason it's named that is because of these, the die that you have to roll in order to conquer the region. This is where your mercenaries are. The Barbarians' armies start off particularly weak, and what we need to do is we need to be able to bolster them, and to bolster them as fast as we can, because going through the development tree is a very, very slow process to get some good troops. So what we want to do is to be able to move out that way. So in particular with this army here, which army might you want to select for doing this? You've got to make sure it's one of your larger armies. So I'd say that army number 3 is not a particularly good option. I wouldn't recommend army number 1 because we want to, I think, hold on to our general and put them into a place where we're likely to get into combat. So army number 2 is a really good candidate for this. Let me actually bring army number 2 up here, and I'm just going to have to look through this as we're doing. Perfect, army number 2. So take a look at army number 2 here. As you can see, it's quite a large army. It starts off with 7 cards altogether, but it's also got these really poor quality lowland warriors, so they are perfect fodder for us to go out campaigning with, because if we lose them, it's not the worst thing in the world. They don't upgrade that particularly amazingly well. There's other armies that we might want to consider upgrading with, and I'll show you what that looks like later. But for now, what we want to do is we want to take this army, and you want to move it from this region over here. Keep in mind, so you're this region that is to the east of this river, and move them into here, then into here, and then into here, so that it's finishing on this turn. What is going to be possible for you is going to depend how many unit cards you lose as you're traipsing along this line. So if we come into this region, and let's say that we don't lose anything, and then we come into this region and we lose 1 main battle card. So what that means, if we're using army number 3, then we are going to be down to, I'm just picturing it in my head, I believe that we're then down to 5 main battle cards. So that might be enough. You have to keep in mind that coming into here, we have the potential to lose up to 3 main battle cards. That would be absolutely devastating if we did that. So you want to consider, are you going to come to here in your first turn, or are you going to make a move right down into this mercenary region straight away? And because if you're able to do it, then it's absolutely worthwhile to go down, do it, secure it, and then to put down your barracks, so that you'll have control of that. You'll be able to spawn armies out of there. But at the moment, let's go conservatively and make an assumption that actually we lost too many battle cards coming into here, and I'm worried about going into this region, so we're not going to do that on our first turn. We're going to wait till the second turn for that. So that can be, it can seem like a little bit of a disaster. Okay, well, we've got another thing that we can do instead. What we can actually do is we can spawn our agent into here, who's going to be able to make the moves into this region. And if we did have that card, which allows us to be able to hire mercenaries, then what we could do is actually from here is at the end of this turn we can hire mercenaries directly into this army, and I'm going to represent that here. Actually, we can hire mercenaries directly into this army and then use them to go and capture that region. Fantastic. It also means that if the Greeks do decide to take a beeline towards us very, very quickly, that this army is going to be bolstered. So we want to keep that in mind. So that's what I'd suggest doing with your first army, and that first army being army number 3. Next, we want to think about what we're going to do down here in terms of the Iberian Peninsula, and this is a good candidate for army number 1. So you've got a really good general in army number 1. Let me see if I can actually bring them up. Is this army number 1? That looks like army number 3. Is this what I showed you before? Pardon me, guys. I showed you army number 2 before. This is army number 3. That's the one that we're going to hold in reserve, just because of its size and the quality. Which one is this one here? This is army number 4. That's going to be important later. What I want to do here is I want to be showing you army number 1, but it's not playing ball. It's not playing ball here at all. Okay, I won't be able to show you army number 1 just now, but army number 1, it looks an awful lot like army number 2, but it's got a really, really good general. So taking army number 1 out here and starting up in this region, I would say. And the reason we want to start up in this region is because your next move should be to move them down towards the south into the region that I refer to as the outpost. That is a really, really important region for you to capture and to hold. And the reason for that is because it's really great in terms of how you can defend it. It's fantastic in terms of giving your access to the Mediterranean as well, in case that's going to be relevant, because having access to the Mediterranean means that you can assert influence over what's happening in terms of the fleets, and is going to give you bargaining power when it comes to alliances within the Mediterranean. If you do not have the ability to assert that influence, then you just can't do it. And this is the only real candidate to allow us to get our fleets into here without having to go through this bottleneck, and therefore we're at the mercy of the Carthaginians down here, and so it makes it that we can't apply pressure to the Carthaginians. So definitely get this army down into here and make sure you capture that. And then from there, what I would recommend is with this army is actually then to move them down into here. And what we're going to do here is we're going to get started on forming the wall. So go and watch the video about the wall and its defensive its defensive opportunities that it offers here. After you've managed to capture this here, in the next turn you're going to then want to move to this other region here to seal that off. And generally speaking, if you've got players who play much more traditional games, I mean the game's only just come out at this stage, but who play quite traditional games, the Carthaginians are going to allow you to do that. They're not going to try and sneak past you here, because that would leave them exposed, which leaves you in a great position that when it comes to turn number 2, you're going to be able to move this army over here and seal them in there. You might think that's leaving an awful lot of territory left on the table. Well, don't you worry about that. We'll get back to that later. Next, what I'm thinking about is actually what we can do with army number 4, and this is the one that we intend to be a bit more offensive with. This is the one that has the can I just find him here? Because when you're able to see it, that says a lot more than me being able to explain it. That's the one that's got the Highlander units in it. So I believe that here we go. So here's our Highland units. So when we're looking at our Highland units, the thing that you really need to pay attention to, oh, it's going to be underneath that, oh well. The thing to really pay attention to is the special effects. Their ability to destroy, when it comes to terrain, to destroy basically any unit type, makes them absolutely formidable. And even though the dice don't look particularly great, you have to keep in mind that the S effect is likely to come up pretty well on a green die. So if you're not managing to get a kill or a wound, that S effect is going to give you that kill anyway. So this is the army that we want to be most offensive with, and with it we want to consider having a battle within terrain. This is a great one that if you have a card at the beginning of the game which will give you the opportunity to prepare the battlefield and add terrain, you might want to hang on to that card to see what we were going to do with this army here. So you might want to start over here. It doesn't matter too much which region you start in, and what I would be saying here is that we're either going to form the fortress over here and take these regions, or what we're going to do is we're going to want to move down into here, into the palisade, in order to try and put some pressure on the Romans there. So actually I said that it didn't matter so much, but the best place to start is actually the same place that we started with army number 1 before. If we start them here. The other thing as well, guys, that you have to keep in mind is that if you think that some of your armies are unbalanced, remember what you can do is you can actually spawn both the armies into the same region, and as long as you move them out of those regions, then you're not going to incur any penalties. So you move them into there, reorganize them, and then move them out. But keep in mind that that's going to use up a movement, a movement of unit for each of them as well, which limits your ability to make gains in the first turn, which is absolutely crucial, especially when we're in the position that we get to go first. So what we might want to do here is to move these guys down, and if we're not thinking about being defensive and going across here, then instead what we want to do is we want to move into here. So that's going to be 1, 2, and then we have the possibility that we could go 3, or we can go 3 into here and capture 2 of these. If we have a force march card, this is definitely the place to use it, and gobble up these regions right here, putting an awful lot of pressure on the Romans to then have to come and to defend these territories, or even better to try and attack you at a time when you have an army which is likely to be larger than their army, and which is likely to be better than their army, particularly in the terrain. So we're going to make the assumption that we managed to come in here and capture 2 of these regions. So that other one we're going to have to think about for our third turn. That's definitely what you would do with that, and seal the Romans down into the south here. So that's what we want to do, is we want to try and form that battle line here, which leaves us in the position that we can gobble up all of these territories sitting up here to the north of that. Then what we want to do is think about what we're going to do with army number 3, which is our final army that we've not yet put out. So what people like to do is to leave them back here defensively. There's no pressure for you to put it out in the first turn, which gives you a bit of flexibility. But the great thing is that actually, if we play this army up here, that puts us in a position where we'll be able to go north into Britannia and sweep in and gobble up these regions over here. And if it is possible for you to do so, it depends how many unit cards you're losing as you're moving up into here. But there is the possibility of being able to take all of Britannia, and so I've counted myself down in the last few interactions that have taken place. So statistically we got to get a win. So let's just say that we managed to capture all 3 of the regions up here. If you didn't manage to, you can use the first turn next time to do that. So that's what we can do with army number 3. It's the weakest one. We do that here because you're likely to get the least amount of resistance if we do that here. So then that's going to be the end of all of your army's movements. So what we've managed to do is move over here to try and establish a foothold near the sun, so we're able to recruit some mercenary units. See we also moved our agent over there just in case we're not able to do that. Here's something to keep in mind for you as well. If we did have an agent over here, you can recruit mercenary units into an army that is up to 4 spaces away. So let's take a look at how far away this army is from there. So the shortest route from there is 1, 2, 3, 4, and look at that. We would be able to recruit mercenary units into this army over here that is sitting on just over onto the other side of the board there. So we'd be able to recruit mercenary units there. That is vital to keep in mind when it comes to replenishing your troops, that you don't have to go for those cheap those cheap units that come from your roster. You can actually recruit from the mercenaries over here, so definitely one to keep in mind. We've also managed to establish a defensive line here against the Carthaginians. And also we've established, I say a defensive line, but it's quite an offensive line against the Romans. We are in a position that we can put an awful lot of pressure on them. And the great thing about this is, I'm saying put a lot of pressure on the Romans, but actually this could be a great opportunity to say, look, I'm right at your door here. You don't want me attacking you. I don't really want to attack you either. Why don't we be allies? You and me be allies. We can actually start moving away from each other, and we can focus on our common enemies, such as the Carthaginians, such as the Greeks, over to the other side there. Because I'm under a lot less pressure from them than you are, that means that I'm very well incentivized to go ahead and to take my chances. And you, on the other hand, well, you're at risk of being destroyed in this case. So why don't we actually buddy up instead of fighting here? And if they don't let you do that, well, then you're in a fantastic spot to be able to advance in on their home regions, and that is at the end of the first turn. We've also managed to go up north and capture Britannia, so a lovely little set of territories up there. Now what we want to do is we want to move past the campaign phase. It really depends what the map looks like at this point, but then we're going to go into the spending phase, and in particular we need to think about what our spending strategy is going to be. So it's probably not a great time to move for our spending strategy that is about exploiting what we have, where we have about a 75% spend on our developments, because we will have lost so many units from our campaigning, and also we want to be able to build our armies up even if we did get lucky, because we're looking to do some more campaigning and maybe some battles in the next 2 or 3 turns. So maybe more of a mixed spending strategy is going to be better. So watch the video on that, where I go through what those kind of look like. But in particular, if you're feeling that you're going to be very aggressive in the next turn, you might want to go for a 75% spend on units and 25% on developments. But what I'm going to do here just now is, I'm feeling okay, I'm going to go for a 50-50. So as part of that, what we then want to do is we want to take a look at the developments on our board. Here we go, we got it here, right. So when we're looking at our developments, what would be really great to pick up is to go right down to the bottom here, and reduced antipathy. So that one in particular might not be that helpful to us, but the reason why we want to go for that is actually because of the development that is next to it, which is peaceful agriculture, which will allow us to, if we've got markets that are adjacent within our home regions, we can collect gold from them. So that's a really powerful upgrade, and it only costs us 2 when we get there. So of the 13 gold that we've got in our first turn, want to spend 3 of it on this one in particular. The extra agent and extra cards, always useful. Pony riders, I would rather go for the mercenaries rather than going the cavalry route. It is a good one, but I would say maybe pick that up as a mid-game strategy that's going to pay out in the late game. What I would say here is, it depends on your play style and whether you think this is a good idea. But next thing I would do is go for the transports. So that's another 2, giving us a total of 5, which means we've got I can't count. Which means we've got 8 gold left. Going for the transports is going to be really useful for the reason I'm going to show you just in a moment. And then the other thing you might want to think about is being able to pick up the our kind of mid-tier army units there as well. But actually what I'm going to do is I'm not going to do that just now, because I said we've got a 50-50 spending ratio, so of 13 doesn't cut perfectly, so I'm going to say that 6 is going to be spent on replenishing the armies, giving us 7 left. That's a spent 5. So after we've done this, what I would actually say that we're going to do is we're going to go back onto the map board, and if we did manage to get into this region here, that's where we might want to purchase a barracks, and that might be our priority. But because I didn't manage to do that, I'm actually going to put down a market, and the best place to start a market is actually in this region right here. And then from there, in the next turn, when we build another market and we have peaceful agriculture, that's going to give us an extra two gold every single turn. So if we get that established right now by putting a market down here, then that's going to set us up really well for the next turn. You might notice that we still have one more agent that we could put out onto the board. So you could have done that in your campaigning phase. The best place to put those agents is anywhere kind of around the Mediterranean basin surrounding Rome. So you put it down in Rome, but the best place to put it actually is over here. If you want to establish diplomatic relations, and this is a strategy worth sharing with other people, is if you put your agent here, that means that you can actually access every capital of the other nations if it's placed right here, because they get 5 movement points. So please take a look at the video on that as well, that I refer to as the Holy Cross, where you'll see I make a mistake and say that they've got 4 movement points, they've actually got 5. So you stick it here, you've got access to all 5 there. So if someone wants to come and do a deal with you, there you go, you can stick them there and they will definitely be able to reach you. So the next thing what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what you might want to do now that you've started your next turn and you've invested in your navies. So like I said, you could put a navy down here in particular so that you can assert influence in here, and that might be useful to you. But in particular what I'm thinking is that you can grab a navy and you can actually start it in this region over here. And what you can do, you can then load up your army onto there. So that's going to cost each of them 1 point, leaving our army with 2 points of movement, our navy with 3 points of movement, because it's free to move out of the port. So let's make that clear as well. We're moving out of that port, putting the army onto there, and then we're going to go 1 and 2 into here. And now that that navy is actually sitting down here, we then have the opportunity that we can move that army down into here. And what that means is we have an opportunity to, 1, pick up more mercenary units, 2, after we've moved this army over to here and establish our wall, it gives us the opportunity to come around and stab the Carthaginians in the back and put them onto the defensive. So yeah, we're getting access to more mercenaries, which is going to be useful for recruiting into the army down here. But what you want to keep in mind is that after you've captured this region down here, we want to make sure that we are able to maintain our ability to keep it supplied. So after you've captured this region, you then want to move this army back up here and capture this region. And then what that means is that so long as you have a navy that is sitting, let me show you, down over here, you can retreat this navy back to here, and you've still got a line of communication from this region through that navy to your home regions. That's your line of communication running down there, which means that you can keep this army replenished. If you don't have that, then you can't keep it replenished. So you've got to keep that in mind if you're going to use this. This is called the Citadel. Take a look at the video on that. That's how you're going to be able to use that, take advantage of that, which means you could be a bit more offensive against the Carthaginians. So that has been the Barbarian opening. If you get to go first on the first turn, I hope that's giving you some really good food for thought. And if this is something that is useful to you, then please go ahead and give this video a like and let me know that this is something that you're interested in. If you want to make sure that you're receiving these videos on a regular basis, then absolutely subscribe to the channel, and you can personalize the notifications that you're receiving from me, just in case I'm making videos about other games as well that you're not interested in. And if this is something that you think is valuable, it will help to make your games more competitive, then go ahead and share these videos. But if this is something that you actually want to keep to yourself, and you want to show really impress your friends with how many wonderful, crazy strategies you've got, then go ahead and keep this to yourself. But just keep in mind, you're only going to be able to keep it secret from them for so long. The last thing I want to mention here, guys, is that my target for growing this channel is to have 300 returning 300 returning viewers, and the reason why I've picked that is about 3,000 people bought the original game during the campaign, and if I could get 10% of you coming back and watching my videos and being able to take advantage of these, then that is going to be absolutely wonderful. I'm hoping that at least 10% of you are out there on YouTube interested in this, looking for this kind of content, and if at least 10% of you are out there and doing your research as any good general should do, and I'm able to help contribute towards what your games could look like and make them much more dynamic, then that would be absolutely wonderful. But one way that you can really help, guys, is that if you do feel this way about these videos, then please go ahead and mention that in the comments, because others do go ahead and read these comments, and they take what you say very seriously. If they see a video of this kind of length and they go, is this worth it? And they go down to the comments and they can see that you've gotten value out of it, then they'll watch it too. So please, it's not to help me necessarily, it is to help grow this channel and to help grow the hobby within this board game, because if we can get more people interested in it and using these kind of crazy strategies, then that's really great. But I'm going to say bye for now, and are you bored through? We're bored through, and here at Bored Through, we're all about the gameplay.